All right, hi everybody. I just want to talk about artist statements. So I'm gonna go through and go through my example and just kind of the reasons we do an artist statement. So obviously you can read through everything I wrote, but the reason we write an artist statement is it's the explanation from an artist about their work, their ideas, their process. And the reason we write one is to give viewers an insight into what we just did. It's way more meaningful when you learn the story behind the artwork, because you can connect with it on an even deeper level. So this artist statement um, really gives you a connection to the artist, not just the piece. So where to begin? I've linked a template here, the It's Clear template. So you're going to click on that and it's going to make a copy of the document into your Google Drive. So once you open it up, it's going to look like this. So it's called It's Clear because each section it spells it. It's clear is an acronym. So indent, topic, sentence, context, lead in, evidence, analysis, and wrap up. So you'll get a copy of this document here. Once you're done with that, I did link my examples that you'll see in this video if you want to go back and read my example. But for here, I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So for the artist statement, you're going to go through, and what I suggest doing is answering each question right here in the template. To be clear, this is not what you're turning into me. This is an organizer for you to use, um, but this isn't what you're going to submit to me when you're finished. So think of this as like your study guide organizer, not the final paper, if that makes sense. So you're going to go through and you're going to answer each question based on the project we did. If you get to this part about materials and you can't remember what something's called, just ask me and I'll let you know. Um, but that's what this is for. So I'm going to show you my example here. So everything in blue I wrote down. So some of the things I just did little bullet points, but then for some of these other ones, I wrote out in full sentences. I highly suggest doing that wherever you can. Um, it's just going to make your life a lot easier in the long run. So here talking about the indent and the topic sentence, I just listed the main criteria because I'm going to form that first paragraph later. I just need to get all the things written down that I was going through when I made my project. And then you can see down here this grab the reader's attention part. That's really important because when you start a paper of any kind or any kind of writing, if you just kind of dive into the information, it's not super thrilling. You want to get their attention somehow. So think of a question, a quote, a fact, something that's going to pique their interest. So I wrote my artist statement about the slab letters that we did for the crossword puzzle. So I found this fun fact about crossword puzzles, and that's what I'm going to use as my attention getter for my first sentence of my artist statement. So moving down to context, this is content. So what's the concept of your art? What was the subject? Why did you choose it? What was your ideas behind it? That's where you're going to write these things down. So I did a bullet point list, but it's a sentence at each bullet point. That's how I kind of set it up. You don't have to set it up this way, but I do suggest writing in sentences wherever you can. So then I come down here and I just made a running list of all the things I used. And then I went through and I thought about, okay, how did I use each of these tools? And that's what I wrote in full sentences down here. So I did my bullet point list up here, but then I wrote in sentences down here. And then I thought about how did I design the project? How did I make everything come together? Evidence, this is really important. This really ties back to those art elements and principles that are at the foundation of everything we do. So if you need to look back at those are in past modules. I highly suggest doing that. And then I explained how I incorporated each of those into my work. Again, I did full sentences here and just a bullet point list up top. So then comes the analysis. So this is really your reflection point of the artist statement. So what did you do well? What would you change or do differently next time? Um, and this really should be pretty thoughtful. Don't just say I don't like it. What specifically don't you like about it, or what do you really like? What are you proud of? Um, that's what's going to give the viewer a better idea about what you went through when making this project. And then finally, there's the wrap up. So this what did you learn kind of ties in with that last bit, but then really think about why is your work important, and don't just say because Miss Olson made me do it, because that's not the point. So why is it important? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to the viewer? Why should they take the time to look at your artwork? That's what you really should be thinking about. And then also make sure you find a nice way to wrap everything up in a nice bow. Don't just cut it off at a weird spot. Find a nice close your sentence, just like we did at the beginning, something that catches their attention. The closing sentence should make them feel comfortable or leave them thinking, but don't leave it at an awkward stopping point. So once you've got the template filled out, what's really nice is you're going to open up a completely blank document, and this is what you're going to turn into me. It's going to turn into this beautiful long paper, but really it's only like a page. And you can see everything that's in blue here, I literally just copied and pasted from my template. So when I told you to write in full sentences anywhere in here, I highly suggest doing so, because then later you can just copy and paste it and drop it into your paper. So anything that's black, I added in afterwards or as I was going, just to make sure that it flowed nicely. And I do want you to make sure you do that. A nice trick that I learned when I was in college is read something out loud to yourself. If it sounds funny being read aloud, it doesn't make sense to somebody else. So even if you just go paragraph by paragraph, just make sure you read through out loud to yourself, to your dog, to your fish, whatever makes you happy. Um, and if it sounds a little clunky, if something doesn't sound quite right, um, try changing the wording or the structure of the paragraph. Lastly, once you get everything all put together, I want you to make sure that your name is at the top. The project, and your class period. So whatever cohort you're in. So I'll fake it and say I'm in the green cohort, fourth hour. Okay. So make sure you put all those things there at the top for me, just so I know what I'm reading as I get into it. And then once that's done, you submit this on Canvas. Lastly, I can't stress it enough, punctuation, capitalization, and grammar are all important things. Um, if something gets underlined in red, um, Google is telling you that it's spelt wrong. So fix it, please, and thank you. Make sure you are capitalizing your I's. I get a lot of emails from people with lowercase i's when they're talking about themselves. It's really unprofessional, and it's not something that you're going to want to put out to the public when people are reading this kind of stuff. So make sure that everything is really well written. Don't be afraid to ask a friend, a parent, a neighbor to read it and say, can you just proofread this for me? I know it's scary to put out your writing for other people to read, but in the long run, it can save you embarrassment because of um, how well things are written. So keep that in mind. I think that was all I needed to cover with you. So, parting thoughts here. Again, when you're in the template, I suggest write in sentences wherever you can. Make sure you answer every question that's on here, because that's what I'll be grading for, is to make sure that you hit all the points you needed to. And it's always better to go deeper into detail than you need to, than being really vague and not telling me anything. So best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions.